Maybe you've heard someone say, Buddhism teaches that life is suffering, and something in you tightens up. Maybe you felt a little sad, or even annoyed. You might have thought, if that's true, then what's the point? Why wake up in the morning? Why love anyone? Why try? And if you're already carrying stress, anxiety, heartbreak, or exhaustion, that phrase can feel like a heavy stone placed right on top of your chest. So let's slow down and look carefully, because Buddha was not trying to make you hopeless. He was trying to make you free. He was not a man who looked at life and said, everything is terrible, give up. He was more like a wise doctor who looked at the human heart and said, I see the wound, I see what causes it, I see that it can heal, and I will show you the medicine. When Buddha spoke about suffering, he used a word in Pali, dukkha. People often translate it as suffering, but that English word can be too narrow and too harsh. Dukkha is not only pain, it is also unsatisfactoriness. It is the sense that something is slightly off, slightly shaky, slightly unreliable. It is the feeling that even when you get what you want, it doesn't fully settle you. Even when life looks good from the outside, something inside still reaches, still worries, still wants to hold on. If you have ever had a moment where everything seemed fine, yet your mind still searched for something to fix, something to improve, something to worry about, then you have already tasted dukkha. It is not a punishment. It is not a sign that you are broken. It is simply a feature of ordinary human life when the mind clings to things that cannot be held forever. Let's make it very simple. There are moments of obvious pain in life, when your body is sick, when someone you love leaves, when you fail at something important, when you lose money, when you are lonely. This kind of pain is easy to understand. No one needs a philosophy to know it hurts. But Buddha also pointed to another kind of dukkha, the pain of change. Even pleasant things change. The good day ends, the vacation finishes, the delicious meal becomes only a memory. The compliment fades and the mind starts craving another one. The relationship that felt secure begins to shift. Your body that felt strong at 20 may feel different at 40. Even joy, when it depends on conditions, has a quiet shadow behind it because the mind knows this will not last. And then there is a third layer that is even more subtle. It is the quiet unease that comes from clinging to life as if it should be stable, as if it should always go your way, as if you should always feel in control, as if the world should always give you certainty. This is the kind of dukkha that can exist even when nothing bad is happening. It is like a background hum of restlessness. This is why the simple phrase, life is suffering, can mislead people. Because Buddha was not saying every moment is misery. He was not denying laughter, love, beauty, friendship, kindness, sunsets, music, and all the gentle joys we can experience. He was saying something more honest and more helpful. If you cling to life as if it can always satisfy you, you will suffer. If you demand permanent security from impermanent things, your heart will be stressed. A good way to understand dukkha is with a very ordinary image. Imagine you're walking and there is a tiny pebble inside your shoe. It's not a huge rock. You can still walk, you can still talk, you might even still smile. But after a while, that pebble starts rubbing your skin. It creates irritation, it creates discomfort, and the longer you ignore it, the worse it feels. That pebble is like dukkha. It can be small, it can be subtle, but it is enough to disturb your peace. And what is the solution? Not to hate your foot, not to blame the shoe, not to pretend you are fine while slowly suffering. The solution is simply to stop, take off the shoe, and remove the pebble. That's what Buddha was doing. He was helping us remove the pebble. In modern life, dukkha shows up in so many ordinary ways. You might wake up in the morning and before your feet even touch the floor, your mind is already planning, worrying, comparing, rushing. You might be doing something enjoyable, but part of you is thinking about what comes next. You might achieve a goal you wanted for months, and for one moment you feel relief. But then the mind says, okay, what's the next goal? You might open your phone and scroll, not because you truly need anything, but because the mind is restless. You might keep checking messages, looking for reassurance. You might feel uneasy when you see someone else's success. You might worry about your future even when your present is okay. You might feel tense in relationships because part of you wants certainty and you cannot get it. So when Buddha spoke about dukkha, the tone is important. It is not gloomy, it is compassionate. It is like a doctor saying, I understand what hurts you. I am not blaming you. I am simply showing you what is true. And this leads us to a very important point. Buddhism is not a philosophy that ends with suffering. It begins with honesty about suffering so that it can lead to freedom. The teaching is like a map. The map does not insult you for being lost. It simply shows you where you are and how to get home. This is why the Four Noble Truths are so central. They are not a depressing statement. They are a practical guide. First, there is dukkha, stress, dissatisfaction, suffering, whatever word you prefer. Second, there is a cause of dukkha. Third, there is an end to dukkha. Fourth, there is a path leading to that end. Notice something. If Buddha were a pessimist, he might have said only the first truth and stopped. But he didn't stop. He continued. He showed the cause, the end, and the path. That is not hopelessness. That is deep compassion and deep confidence. So what is the cause? Buddha used another Pali word, tanha, often translated as craving. But again, we must understand it simply. Craving is the mind's habit of grabbing pleasure, grabbing control, grabbing certainty, grabbing identity. It is the feeling of, I need this to be okay, or I need this not to happen. It is the mind trying to hold the river still. You can notice craving in yourself very easily. You don't need to be a scholar. You just need to watch your own heart. When you really want someone to like you and you feel tense until you get approval, that is craving. When you want things to go your way and you feel angry when they don't, that is craving. When you cling to a certain image of yourself and you feel pain when it is threatened, that is craving. When you cannot accept uncertainty and you keep thinking, planning, predicting, worrying, that is craving. And craving has two close friends that often walk with it. One is aversion. Aversion is pushing away. It is the mind saying, I hate this. I don't want this. This shouldn't be happening. The other is confusion or ignorance, which in Buddhism is not an insult. It simply means not seeing clearly. It means we don't see impermanence clearly. We don't see how clinging creates stress. We don't see how the mind creates stories and then suffers inside those stories. Let's look at a very simple daily scenario. You send a message to someone you care about. Maybe it's a friend, maybe it's a partner, maybe it's someone you admire. Hours pass, no reply. At first, you are calm, but then the mind begins. Why aren't they replying? Did I say something wrong? Are they ignoring me? Do they not care? Maybe they're with someone else. Maybe they're upset. Now notice what happens in the body. Maybe your chest tightens. Maybe your stomach feels heavy. Maybe you feel restless. Maybe you keep checking your phone. Nothing has actually happened yet. There is no direct proof of rejection, but suffering has already begun. Why? Because the mind is clinging to a need. I need reassurance. I need certainty. I need to feel valued right now. And because the mind cannot get that certainty, it creates a story. It creates a world of fear, and then you live inside that world. This is dukkha. Not because the person is evil, not because you are weak, but because the mind is grabbing what it cannot control. Another common scenario is work and status. You can be doing okay, maybe even doing well, but then you get one criticism, one small comment. Someone says, this could be better, or they look disappointed, and suddenly your mind replays it again and again. You feel like your whole worth is under attack. The body tenses, sleep becomes difficult, you feel anxious in meetings, you worry about what people think. This is another form of dukkha. The mind is clinging to praise and fearing blame. Buddha talked about this in the 8 worldly conditions: gain and loss, praise and blame, pleasure and pain, fame and disrepute. The world world will move through these conditions like wind moves through trees. No one can control it. Some days you are praised, some days you are criticized, some days you gain, some days you lose, some days you feel pleasure, some days you feel pain. If your happiness depends on always being on the good side of these 8 conditions, your heart will never rest. It will be like a leaf shaking in the wind. But if your mind learns wisdom and steadiness, it can become like a rock. The wind can blow, but the rock remains. Now think about love and relationships. Love is beautiful. Buddhism does not reject love. But many people suffer in love because they turn love into possession. They cling to people as if they can guarantee safety forever. They want love to remove uncertainty. But no relationship can do that because life itself is uncertain. People change, feelings change, situations change, bodies change, time moves. So sometimes, even when you are with someone you love, part of you feels fear underneath. Fear of losing them, fear of being abandoned, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being replaced. And this fear is a kind of dukkha, not because love is wrong, but because clinging is painful. So here is the key point. Buddhism is not saying happiness is impossible. It is saying that happiness that depends entirely on conditions is unstable. It rises and falls. It comes and goes. And because it comes and goes, the mind feels insecure. This is why Buddha pointed to a deeper kind of happiness. Not the happiness of always getting what you want, but the happiness of a mind that understands reality. A mind that can accept change, a mind that can let go. We can call this peace. In Buddhism, peace is not the absence of all feeling. It is not becoming cold. It is the ability to be present without being dragged around by craving and fear. Think of the difference between pleasure and peace. Pleasure is like a sweet taste. It can be wonderful, but it quickly fades. It cannot be held. Peace is like stable ground. Even if pleasant things come and go, the ground remains. Even if unpleasant things come and go, the ground remains. Now, you might wonder, okay, I understand this a little, but what do I do with it? If the mind keeps craving and resisting, how do I stop suffering? This is where Buddha's teaching becomes very practical, because Buddhism is not only a belief system, it is a training, a path. Let's begin with a very gentle turning point. When you understand dukkha correctly, you stop thinking, something is wrong with me. You stop thinking, I am failing at life because I feel stressed. Instead, you begin to see, oh, this is a pattern. This is how the mind works when it clings. And because it is a pattern, it can be understood. And because it can be understood, it can be changed. Just like if you see the pebble in your shoe, you no longer feel confused. You no longer suffer extra. You simply remove it. So the first practice is something very simple. Naming dukkha without drama. When stress appears, instead of immediately reacting or blaming, you quietly name what is happening. You might say inside yourself, worrying or wanting or resisting or tightness or fear or restlessness. This is not to judge yourself. It is to become aware. Awareness is the beginning of wisdom. Often suffering grows because it is unconscious. It is like a fire in the house and we pretend it's not there. We keep living as normal while the smoke builds. But when you name it, you turn on the light. You begin to see clearly, and when you see clearly, you create space. You are no longer fully inside the emotion, you are watching it. The second practice is returning to the body as a safe home. Many people live in the mind. They live in thoughts, stories, memories, worries, plans. The mind can travel far into the past and far into the future. And when it travels like that, it often carries fear and regret. The body is always in the present moment. The body is a doorway back to now. So when you feel dukkha, gently come back to your breath. Not to control it harshly, but to feel it. Feel the inhale. Feel the exhale. Feel the rise and fall of the chest. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your hands resting. Feel the simple fact of being alive. This is like coming home after wandering for a long time. You don't need to solve everything right now. You just need to return. The third practice is learning the the pause between feeling and reaction. This is very important. In life, things happen. A sound, a word, a memory, a sensation, a feeling arises, and then very quickly we react. We speak sharply, we send an angry message, we eat to numb ourselves, we scroll to escape, we plan obsessively, we criticize ourselves, we blame others. Buddha's path helps us create a pause, even a small pause. That pause is freedom. So when you feel something unpleasant, practice this. Pause, breathe once, and simply notice. What am I feeling? Where do I feel it in the body? What story is my mind creating? You don't need to answer perfectly. You just need to notice. This pause can save relationships. It can save your mental health. It can save you from many regrets. The fourth practice is softening craving through contentment and gratitude. Craving says, I will be happy when I get more. More money, more praise, more security, more attention, more success, more certainty. And because the mind always wants more, it never rests. Contentment is not giving up. It is learning to enjoy what is already here without always demanding something else. It is learning to say, in this moment, I have enough to breathe. I have enough to be present. I have enough to be okay. Gratitude helps this, even small gratitude, not forced positivity, but simple recognition. Today I ate, today I walked, today I had one kind conversation, today I saw the sky, today I made it through a difficult hour. This softens the hungry mind. The fifth practice is meeting pain with kindness instead of shame. Many people suffer twice. First, they feel pain. Second, they shame themselves for feeling pain. They think, I shouldn't be like this. I should be stronger. Why am I so sensitive? Why can't I control my mind? Why am I still hurting? This second suffering is often heavier than the first. Buddhist practice invites compassion. When pain arises, treat yourself like you would treat someone you love. If a child is crying, you don't shout at them and say, stop crying, you're annoying. You hold them, you listen, you soothe. So when you suffer, you can place a gentle hand on your heart and say, this is hard, this is painful, and I am here. Even if you cannot fix everything, you can hold it with kindness. This already reduces dukkha. The sixth practice is seeing impermanence in real time. Impermanence is one of the most powerful medicines in Buddhism because clinging is based on the illusion that things can be held. When you watch carefully, you see that everything changes. A thought arises, stays briefly, and passes. A mood comes, stays, and goes. A sensation appears, shifts, disappears. Even the strongest emotion is not permanent. It feels permanent when you are inside it, but if you watch it like a wave, you see it move. So practice this. When a thought comes, instead of believing it completely, notice it as a thought. When an emotion arises, notice it as an emotion. Watch it change. This does not mean you suppress it. It means you stop clinging to it. You stop building your identity around it. Over time, this creates great freedom because you stop being terrified of mental storms. You know they pass. The seventh practice is generosity or dana. This might surprise you. You might think, what does generosity have to do with suffering? But it has everything to do with it because craving is grasping and generosity is releasing. When you give money, time, kindness, attention, you train the heart to open. You train the mind to feel abundance rather than lack. You step out of the tight cage of me and mine and you taste the joy of connection. Even small generosity matters. A kind word, helping someone, listening, sharing, offering your seat, smiling. These are not small in the path. They soften the ego, and a softened ego suffers less. Now, as you listen to these practices, you might feel a doubt arise. And this is very normal. You might think, my mind is too messy, I can't do this. Or, I tried mindfulness before and it didn't work. Or, I have too many problems, too much trauma, too much stress. This is not for me. Let's meet these doubts with compassion. The mind is messy for all of us. The mind is not a calm lake most of the time. For many people, it is like a windy ocean. Thoughts crash like waves. Worries pull you under. Memories sting like salt. Buddha did not teach only to people with calm minds. He taught to humans, and humans have messy minds. Training the mind is like training a wild animal or training a young child. You don't expect perfection in one day. You don't shout when the child falls. You help them stand again. If you try to practice and you forget, that is not failure. That is normal. The practice is not never falling. The practice is noticing you fell and beginning again. Each time you begin again, you are building a new habit. Each time you return to the breath, you are strengthening awareness. Each time you choose kindness over shame, you are weakening suffering. So be patient, be gentle. This is a long path, but it is a beautiful one. Now let's connect all this back to the title. Life is suffering, or are we just misunderstanding Buddha? Yes, we are often misunderstanding, because the Buddha's message is not life is only pain. His message is, when the mind clings, there is dukkha. And then, when the mind learns wisdom and letting go, there is peace. This changes your whole view of life. You stop expecting life to always feel comfortable. You stop expecting relationships to always be perfect. You stop expecting yourself to always be confident. You stop demanding certainty from a world that is naturally uncertain. And instead, you begin to live with realism and softness. When something changes, you don't panic as much. When you lose something, you grieve, but you don't break in the same way. When you fail, you learn rather than drowning in shame. When you feel fear, you breathe and hold it rather than running from it. This is not numbness. This is wisdom. This is a heart that understands. And here is the deeper promise. Buddha did not end the teaching at dukkha. He pointed to the end of dukkha. He pointed to a peace that is not dependent on everything going your way. A peace that does not need constant praise. A peace that does not fall apart when conditions change. In Buddhism, this is the possibility of liberation. You don't have to think of it as something mystical. You can think of it as the real experience of a mind that is no longer trapped by craving and aversion. Even if you are not aiming for the highest enlightenment right now, you can taste small freedom today. You can reduce unnecessary suffering. You can live with more ease. So let's bring it to something you can do today in a simple way. Choose one moment, just one moment, where you will practice awareness. It could be when you pick up your phone, pause before you scroll, take one breath, notice what you are seeking. It could be when you feel irritated, pause, feel the body, name the emotion. It could be when you feel anxious about the future. Come back to the breath and say, right now, I am here. It could be when you speak to someone you love. Speak slowly, kindly, with presence. This is how the path begins, not with big dramatic changes, but with small moments of awareness that slowly reshape your life. And when you forget, be kind. Begin again, because the Buddha's teaching is not a punishment, it is a medicine. So as we end, I want to leave you with a gentle reminder. You are not alone in your suffering. We all feel dukkha in different forms. We all cling, we all fear, we all want life to be stable and safe. But you can learn, you can soften, you can become free little by little. May you understand your suffering with wisdom. May you meet your life with kindness. May you be patient with your own heart. And may you grow in peace, step by step, until unnecessary suffering fades and a deeper happiness becomes your natural home.